Every day, you wake up and step into a world full of expectations. You work hard, meet deadlines, maintain relationships, and try to fit into a version of yourself that others approve of. But somewhere in that constant chase, you forget one thing: yourself. You're constantly looking outward, seeking validation, absorbing endless information, and reacting to everything around you. But here's the harsh truth. The more you live for external expectations, the less you truly live for yourself. Think about it. How many times have you hesitated to say what you truly think because you feared judgment? How often do you scroll through social media, measuring your worth through likes and comments? How much energy have you spent worrying about things beyond your control, trying to predict, understand, and fix every uncertainty in life? This stops now. In this video, we'll break down the 8 invisible chains that are holding you back. Chains that keep you stuck in a cycle of overthinking, self-doubt, and external validation. We'll explore Stoic practices that will help you let go of what doesn't serve you and reclaim your mental freedom. Stay until the end, because the final lesson is the one most people overlook, yet it's the key to true peace. And I want to hear from you. What's the hardest thing for you to let go of? Drop it in the comments below. Let's grow together. 1. Detach from the need for approval. You've spent years trying to fit in, adjusting your words, your actions, and even your dreams to match the expectations of those around you. Maybe it started small: a comment about your career, a disapproving look at your hobbies, an unspoken pressure to follow the crowd. And before you knew it, your life wasn't yours anymore. It was a performance. Something is exhausting about constantly seeking approval. It forces you to mold yourself into shapes that don't fit, suppressing your true desires to gain acceptance. But here's the problem. No matter what you do, there will always be someone who disapproves. Someone who thinks you're too much or too little, too ambitious or not enough. And if you build your self-worth on their approval, your confidence will always be fragile, at the mercy of opinions that shift like the wind. We all like to think that we're in control of our own lives. We make decisions based on logic, on our own internal compass. But stop for a moment and ask yourself, how many of your choices were truly yours? The clothes you wear, the job you do, the way you speak, even the things you enjoy. How much of it is shaped by what you think will make you more accepted? And how often have you silenced yourself, ignored your instincts, or held back from something you love, simply because you feared what others might say? The Stoics knew this centuries ago. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That strength doesn't come from external validation. It comes from the ability to stand firm in who you are, regardless of whether the world approves or not. True freedom isn't about gaining acceptance. It's about realizing you never needed it in the first place. Imagine walking through life wearing a heavy suit of armor. It was meant to protect you, to shield you from judgment and rejection. But over time, it became a burden. Every step requires more effort. Every move feels restricted. Letting go of the need for approval is like taking off that armor. You don't become weaker, you become lighter, more agile. You start moving through life with clarity, not caution. And suddenly, you realize that most of the battles you were preparing for never actually existed. Think about a time when you admired someone, not because they tried to impress you, but because they were completely at ease with themselves. Maybe it was a coworker who spoke their mind without hesitation, or an old friend who followed their passion despite the criticism. Their confidence wasn't arrogance. It was the quiet power of someone who no longer seeks permission to be themselves. There was a man who loved music. As a child, he would sit for hours playing his guitar, lost in the melodies he created. But as he grew older, he learned that the world had expectations. People told him to focus on real skills, to choose a practical career, and to stop wasting time on something that wouldn't make money. So he did. He put his guitar away, convinced that he needed to be more responsible, more serious. Years passed. He built a stable career and became respected in his field, but something always felt missing. Then one evening, walking past a cafe, he heard someone playing. A man about his age, casually strumming his guitar with complete ease, completely indifferent to the world around him. People listened, some nodded along, but the musician didn't seem to care whether they approved or not. He was playing for himself. And that moment hit like a revelation. That night, the man went home, dusted off his old guitar, and started playing again. At first, he kept it private, as if testing whether he still had permission to enjoy it. Then slowly he stopped caring. He played on weekends. He brought music back into his life, not as a career, not for an audience, but because it was a part of him. And something remarkable happened. The stress that had always followed him started to fade. He felt more alive, more himself than he had in years. When you abandon the need for approval, you don't become reckless, you become real. You stop filtering your existence through the opinions of people who don't walk in your shoes. You stop waiting for permission to be who you already are. The world is filled with critics, but their words only have power if you let them. So what do? You stand firm in your values. You recognize that approval is fleeting, but authenticity lasts. You stop asking, "What will they think?" and start asking, "What do I think?" Because in the end, the only person who truly has to live with your choices is you. It's not easy. Breaking free from years of conditioning takes time. But every time you choose to honor your own voice over the noise of the crowd, you reclaim a piece of yourself. And soon you'll find that the weight you've been carrying, the hesitation, the self-doubt, the need to please, starts to fade. Your life is not a stage, and you are not a performer. Remove the mask, drop the armor, let them think what they want, and then go live. 2. Abandon the desire to know everything. You wake up, and before your feet even touch the floor, you reach for your phone. News updates, social media trends, a flood of notifications. You scroll, absorbing everything. Political debates, industry shifts, celebrity scandals. By the time you set your phone down, your mind is already racing. The world demands that you stay informed, and that you keep up. But at what cost? Somewhere along the way, knowledge stopped being about wisdom and started becoming a burden. We consume information not to grow, but to keep pace with an ever-moving world. We check the news, not because it enriches our lives, but because we're afraid of missing out. We chase every new trend, not because it adds value, but because we don't want to seem out of touch. The illusion is clear. We think knowing more gives us control, but in reality, it steals our peace. The Stoics understood this. Epictetus once said, "If you wish to improve, be content to appear clueless or ignorant about some things." A powerful statement in a world that equates intelligence with knowing everything. But real wisdom isn't about accumulating endless information. It's about understanding what is truly necessary and letting go of what is not. A cluttered mind is no different from a cluttered room. Both leave little space for clarity. Think of your brain as a hard drive. Every piece of information you consume takes up space. Some of it is useful, essential even, knowledge that shapes your perspective, that deepens your understanding of yourself and the world. But much of it is just noise. Useless trivia, gossip, fleeting trends. The more you fill your mind with unnecessary data, the less room you have for what truly matters. Letting go of the need to know everything is like decluttering that hard drive. It's not ignorance, it's optimization. The less mental clutter you carry, the sharper your thinking becomes. There was a man who had just started a new job. He wanted to fit in, to be liked, to establish himself as someone knowledgeable and competent. So he made it his mission to know everything. Every bit of office gossip, every industry trend, every news update that people might discuss. Every morning, he scanned headlines. Every lunch break, he scrolled through social media, keeping up with the latest controversies and the hottest debates. He prided himself on being informed and on always having something to contribute. At first, it worked. He blended in and held conversations with ease. But then something shifted. His mind felt overloaded, his focus scattered. He started forgetting important details in his actual work. He struggled to recall meaningful conversations with his loved ones because his thoughts were crowded with irrelevant facts. One evening, he sat at dinner with his wife, but instead of engaging, he found himself mentally drafting responses to online debates. When she asked if he was listening, he realized he wasn't. The realization hit hard. In his attempt to stay connected, he had become disconnected from the things that mattered. That night, he did something simple yet revolutionary. He stopped. He unsubscribed from unnecessary news alerts. He deleted social media apps from his phone. He set a rule: if information didn't directly impact his life or contribute to his growth, he didn't need it. And within weeks, something remarkable happened. His focus sharpened, his stress levels dropped. He became more present, not just at work, but in his relationships. Instead of reacting to the endless flow of external information, he started reflecting on what truly mattered. The world will always offer more information than you can consume. It will tempt you with the illusion that knowing more means living better. But ask yourself, how much of what you absorb daily actually serves you? How much of it do you remember a week later? How much of it brings you peace? A wise mind does not know everything. It knows what to ignore. The next time you find yourself lost in an endless cycle of updates, stop. Ask yourself, is this essential? Does this add value to my life? And if the answer is no, let it go. Because the greatest clarity comes, not from knowing everything, but from freeing yourself from the need to. 3. Silence the ego. The ego is like carrying an empty gun. It looks powerful, it makes you feel safe. But when the moment of truth comes, it has no real value. It can't protect you. It can't make you stronger. All it does is give you the illusion of power while making you more vulnerable than ever. Nothing creates more unnecessary conflict in life than an unchecked ego. It turns small disagreements into battles, simple misunderstandings into insults, and constructive criticism into personal attacks. It pushes you to react instead of reflect, to argue instead of understand, to defend instead of grow. It convinces you that backing down is a weakness and that being right is more important than being at peace. But is it? What do you gain from proving someone else wrong? Does it make you wiser? Does it make you happier? Or does it just give you a temporary feeling of superiority, one that disappears as soon as the next challenge to your ego arises? The Stoics understood this long ago. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You always have the option of having no opinion. Not every insult requires a response. Not every argument deserves your time. Not every battle is worth fighting." True confidence is quiet. It doesn't seek validation. It doesn't need to prove itself. When you master the ability to let go of your ego, you don't become weak, you become untouchable. Imagine two warriors standing face to face. One is calm and composed, his sword still in its sheath. The other is frantic, his blade drawn, swinging wildly at shadows. Who is more powerful? The one who controls himself or the one controlled by his emotions? There was a man who prided himself on his intelligence. He had worked hard to build his reputation and didn't tolerate disrespect. One day at a company meeting, a colleague publicly dismissed his ideas, making a sarcastic remark at his expense. The room went silent. Everyone was waiting for his reaction. The old version of him, the one ruled by ego, would have fired back immediately, proving his superiority with a sharper insult. But something stopped him. He looked at the man who had spoken, then calmly asked, "Did you say that to insult me?" The room shifted. His words weren't defensive. They weren't aggressive. They were controlled and measured. His colleague hesitated, suddenly unsure. Without an outburst to feed off of, his insult lost its weight. He muttered something about it being a joke, then changed the subject. Later that day, another colleague approached him. "I don't know how you stayed so calm," they said. That was impressive. And that was the moment he realized something. The strongest person in the room isn't the one who wins the argument. It's the one who doesn't need to have it in the first place. The ego thrives on reaction. It makes you believe that every criticism is an attack and every disagreement is a battle. But the truth is, most of the conflicts we engage in are meaningless. Winning them gives you nothing. Avoiding them costs you nothing. But losing control? That costs you everything. The Stoics valued stillness over noise. Epictetus said, "If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation." No one can truly insult you unless you agree to be insulted. No one can force you into a fight unless you allow them to. When you master the art of not reacting, you take back your power. This doesn't mean letting people walk over you. It doesn't mean accepting injustice. It means choosing your battles wisely. It means recognizing that most conflicts are not about truth, but about pride. If your goal is peace, why let someone else dictate your emotions? The next time someone tries to provoke you, stop. Breathe. Ask yourself, is this worth my peace? If the answer is no, let it go. Walk away, not because you are weak, but because you are strong enough to know when silence speaks louder than words. Some will mistake this for passivity, but make no mistake, this is control. This is discipline. And in a world where most people are ruled by their emotions, the one who can remain calm holds the real advantage. Let go of the need to defend your ego. Let go of the illusion that proving yourself will bring you peace. In the end, your greatest victories will not come from the battles you fight, but from the ones you choose to walk away from. 4. Take responsibility for your life. Blaming others is like yelling at a mirror because you don't like what you see. It doesn't change the reflection. It doesn't fix anything. It only wastes your energy on something outside your control. Every time you shift responsibility onto someone else, your parents, your boss, your partner, the economy, you surrender your power. You convince yourself that your circumstances are someone else's fault, and in doing so, you trap yourself. Because if they are to blame, then they must also be the ones who need to change for your life to improve. And that rarely happens. The truth is harsh but liberating. Your life is yours alone, and no one is coming to save you. You can complain about unfair situations, but the world will not adjust itself to your expectations. You can wish things had been different, but time does not move backward. What you do have, what you have always had, is the ability to decide how you respond. And that's where true power lies. The Stoics understood this deeply. Epictetus taught, we cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them. The difference between a person who remains stuck and a person who thrives is not in what happens to them, but in what they do with it. Two people can face the same hardship. One collapses under the weight of blame, while the other takes ownership and adapts. Which one are you? Think of a ship caught in a storm. One captain blames the weather, curses the wind, and panics. The other tightens the sails, steadies the wheel, and adjusts course. The storm is the same, but one is a victim, and the other remains in command. Life will send storms your way, but the wheel is always in your hands. It's easy to blame a difficult childhood for your struggles as an adult. It's easy to blame an unfair boss for your lack of career growth. It's easy to blame the economy for your financial troubles. And while all these things may play a role, fixating on them does nothing to move you forward. The moment you take responsibility, even for things that weren't your fault, is the moment you gain control over them. Some people resist this idea because taking responsibility means admitting that they could have done more and could have made better choices. But regret is a wasted emotion unless it fuels action. You are not defined by past mistakes. You are defined by what you do next. Imagine two people given the same difficult past. One spends their life resenting it, believing they were set up for failure. The other uses it as fuel, determined to rise above it. The past doesn't change. The only difference is mindset. But taking responsibility goes beyond just personal struggles. It extends to everyday situations, your attitude, your habits, your reactions. How often do you let small inconveniences ruin your day? How often do you get frustrated by things outside your control, whether it's traffic, the weather, or someone else's bad mood? Blaming external forces for your emotions is just another form of surrendering control. No one has the power to make you angry, to make you anxious, or to make you feel inadequate unless you let them. Stoicism teaches that true strength comes from mastering your reactions. Seneca once said, "You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire." Meaning that we waste time fearing things we cannot change, yet act as if we have infinite time to take responsibility for what we can. Imagine you spill coffee on your shirt before an important meeting. You have two choices. You can curse your bad luck, get frustrated, and let it ruin your mood for the rest of the day. Or you can shrug, clean it up, and move forward. The event is the same, but the way you respond determines its impact on you. Now, take that same principle and apply it to bigger issues: your career, your relationships, your future. Every moment you spend blaming something outside yourself is a moment you could have spent improving your situation. When you take responsibility, you stop waiting for life to change and start changing your own life. This isn't about denying hardship or pretending that unfairness doesn't exist. It's about refusing to let those things dictate your future. It's about understanding that while you cannot always control what happens to you, You can always control what you do next. When things go wrong, instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" ask, "What can I do about it?" That shift in perspective changes everything. It moves you from passive to active, from powerless to empowered. Control what you can, release what you can't. Move forward. That's the path to freedom. 5. Become a friend to yourself. You would never belittle a close friend for making a mistake. You wouldn't call them weak for struggling or worthless for failing. You wouldn't tell them they're not good enough every time they try something new. Yet, when it comes to yourself, you do it constantly. You criticize yourself for every small error. You replay past failures like a punishment that never ends. You convince yourself that no matter how much you achieve, it's still not enough. And the worst part? You think this makes you stronger. You think this relentless self-judgment is the price of success. But self-compassion is not a weakness. It is the foundation of resilience. If you want to endure, if you want to grow, you must first learn to stand beside yourself, not against yourself. Be the kind of person to yourself that you would trust in battle. Be your own reliable teammate. The Stoics understood the power of self-perception. Seneca once wrote, "A man is as miserable as he thinks he is." Your suffering doesn't come from the outside world. It comes from within, from the way you judge yourself, from the relentless expectations you impose upon your own existence. And if your mind is your own worst critic, how can you ever find peace? Imagine a warrior stepping onto the battlefield, not with confidence, but with doubt. Every thought telling him he isn't good enough. Every memory reminds him of past failures. He is not beaten by his enemies, he is beaten before the battle even begins. That's what happens when you become your own worst enemy. You don't lose because the world is against you. You lose because you have convinced yourself that you cannot win. There was a man named Frank. He was the definition of strength. A father, a leader, someone others looked up to. On the outside, he was unshakable. But inside, his mind was a battlefield. Every mistake haunted him. Every failure became a confirmation of his deepest fear, that he wasn't good enough. If something went wrong at work, he blamed himself. If a project didn't succeed, he convinced himself that he had let everyone down. One evening, after a particularly difficult day, Frank sat at the dinner table with his son. The boy had spilled a glass of milk, and immediately his face fell. "I'm so stupid," the boy mumbled. Frank felt something twist inside him. He recognized those words. They were the same ones he had told himself 1,000 times. So he did something different. He placed a hand on his son's shoulder and said, "Would you talk to your best friend like that?" His son shook his head. Frank exhaled. "Then don't talk to yourself that way either." And in that moment, it hit him. He had spent years being a rock for others while crumbling inside. He had given the advice he never took himself. He had built strength on a foundation of self-doubt. That night, for the first time, he asked himself a question. What if I became my own friend? He started small. Instead of tearing himself down for mistakes, he looked at them the way he would if a friend had made them, with understanding, with patience. Instead of replaying failures, he reminded himself of what he had overcome. And slowly, something changed. The weight he had carried for years began to lift. Not because the challenges were gone, but because he had stopped making them heavier than they needed to be. Self-compassion is not self-indulgence. It is not an excuse. It is the recognition that you too are human, that you deserve the same patience and encouragement that you offer to others. When you stop being your own worst enemy, you become unstoppable. Think about it. A soldier does not survive a war by attacking himself. A leader does not inspire others by breaking himself down. You cannot become stronger if you are constantly cutting yourself apart from the inside. So next time you fail, stop. Breathe. Ask yourself, would I say this to a friend? If the answer is no, don't say it to yourself either. Choose to be an ally, not an opponent. Choose to support yourself, not sabotage yourself. And if you've made it this far in the video, that means you're already doing the work. You're already taking steps towards self-mastery. Stay with me. The best is yet to come. 6. Rewrite your narrative. Focusing on yourself is like rewriting your script. This time, you are the main character, not a supporting role in someone else's story. For years, you've been following a script that wasn't truly yours. You went to school, got a job, met expectations, and checked all the right boxes. But something feels off. Deep inside, you know there's more. You've ignored dreams, silenced your desires, and convinced yourself that this is just how life is supposed to be. But who wrote those rules? And why do you still follow them? You are not bound to the past version of yourself. You are not required to live according to choices you made when you didn't know better. You are allowed to change direction, to reclaim what you once abandoned. Your life is a book, and the next chapter is unwritten. The question is, will you take the pen, or will you keep following a script written by someone else? The Stoics believed that you are not your past, but your present choices. Epictetus said, "First, say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." It's simple. If you want change, decide who you want to become, then act accordingly. Let go of the old story you've been telling yourself, one filled with limitations, regrets, and doubts. A new version of you is waiting, but only if you are willing to meet it. Imagine watching a movie where the main character has dreams, ambitions, and a fire inside them. But instead of fighting for what they want, they settle. They choose comfort over courage. They stay in a life that doesn't fulfill them because it's easier than risking failure. How would you feel watching that? Frustrated? Disappointed? Now ask yourself, are you living that movie right now? Anna did everything right, at least that's what everyone told her. She graduated with good grades, got a stable office job, and settled into a routine life. But inside, she felt hollow. As a child, she had dreamed of becoming a fashion designer. She would spend hours sketching outfits, playing with fabrics, and imagining her future creations on runways. But life got in the way. Her family needed her to be practical. Designing was just a hobby, not a career. So she buried that dream and moved forward. One afternoon, her younger cousin visited. The girl was full of energy, talking endlessly about her passion for fashion design. She had just started studying and was eager to learn. She had heard that Anna used to design and begged her for advice. At first, Anna hesitated. That part of her life felt like another world, something she had locked away. But as they talked, something shifted. Her cousin's eyes sparkled with excitement, the same way Anna once had. She saw herself in that girl, but there was one difference. Her cousin never gave up. She refused to abandon her dream, no matter how difficult it seemed. That night, Anna pulled out an old sketchbook, flipping through pages she hadn't touched in years. The lines were rough, the ideas unfinished, but they were hers. She realized she had been waiting for permission to return to what she loved, but no one was coming to give it to her. The only person who could rewrite her story was herself. The next morning, she did something she never thought she would. She enrolled in a weekend design course. Not to quit her job, not to make drastic changes, but to take a step. One step toward reclaiming a part of herself she had lost. Change doesn't mean erasing everything and starting over. It means having the courage to make adjustments, to pivot, to recognize that just because you took one path doesn't mean you have to stay on it forever. If you've spent years convincing yourself that your dreams don't matter, that you missed your chance, that you're too late to change, stop. That's not reality. That's a story you've told yourself. And the good news? You can rewrite it. Life doesn't demand that you start over. It only asks that you stop ignoring the parts of yourself that refuse to be silenced. You are not too old. You are not too late. You are not trapped. The only thing holding you back is the story you keep repeating in your mind. If you want to change, start with a single decision. Stop asking for permission. Stop waiting for the right moment. The right moment is the moment you decide to act. Let go of the past narrative that keeps you stuck. Pick up the pen. Write the story only you can tell. 7. Embrace your own company. Spending time alone is like standing in front of a mirror with no distractions, just you, your thoughts, and the truth you often avoid. Most people run from this. They drown themselves in noise, in endless social interactions, in the constant validation of others. But solitude is not something to fear. It is a tool, a gateway to self-discovery, clarity, and inner strength. Imagine a tree standing alone in an open field. No shelter, no nearby trees to support it. It faces every storm directly, every gust of wind, every harsh season. But because of this, its roots grow deeper. Its trunk thickens, It becomes stronger than trees that grow in crowded forests, shielded from struggle. This is what solitude does for you. It makes you resilient and unshaken by the world. Yet society has conditioned us to believe that being alone is a problem to be solved. That silence is uncomfortable. What if no one is watching, listening, or approving? Then we must be missing out. But being alone does not mean being lonely. The two are not the same. One is a state of mind. The other is a skill. The Stoics understood this. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." This is where true strength is found, not in external distractions, but in the ability to sit with yourself, to face your thoughts without fear, and to find peace in your presence. But here's the challenge. Most people can't do it. They need constant distraction. They fill every moment with noise. The second they are alone, they reach for their phones, turn on the TV, they call someone just to fill the silence. Because in silence, they have to face themselves, and that is terrifying. Think about how often you reach for your phone in moments of stillness. When was the last time you allowed yourself to be bored without filling the silence with entertainment? Most people cannot go 5 minutes without distraction. They check notifications, scroll through endless information, and fill their heads with noise, all to avoid the weight of their thoughts. But what if you stopped? What if, instead of running from solitude, you leaned into it? There's a reason why some of the greatest thinkers in history valued solitude. Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius all practiced moments of isolation, not to escape life, but to understand it more deeply. When you are alone, you have no one to impress, no expectations to meet, no judgments clouding your decisions. You get to see yourself. And that clarity is where true transformation begins. Think of your mind as a glass of water. If it's constantly shaken, filled with noise, opinions, distractions, the water is murky. You can't see through it. But if you let it sit still, the debris settles and the water becomes clear. Your mind works the same way. The more time you give yourself in solitude, the clearer your thoughts become. But solitude isn't just about clarity, it's about self-reliance. If your happiness depends on others, it will always be fragile. If you can only feel fulfilled when surrounded by people, then you are not truly free. True confidence is built in moments of solitude. It's easy to feel secure when you're constantly validated by the outside world. The real test is who you are when no one is watching. People often say they want to find themselves, but they spend their days filling their minds with other people's voices, opinions, news, entertainment, social media. How can you find yourself if you never give yourself space to listen? Solitude is not an escape. It is an invitation to know yourself better, to understand what you truly want, and to cultivate inner peace without relying on external validation. So how do you embrace solitude? Start small. Set aside time each day to be alone, without distractions, without external input. Take a walk without music. Eat a meal in silence. Let your mind settle. You don't need to abandon the world. You just need to learn to be at peace when it's just you. At first, it will be uncomfortable. Your mind will resist, it will crave distraction, but sit with it. Observe your thoughts instead of running from them. With time, you will realize that being alone is not something to fear, it is something to master. When you no longer fear solitude, you become untouchable. You stop seeking validation, you stop needing constant stimulation, you learn to trust yourself, to enjoy your own company, and to be content without external approval. And in that state, you become stronger than ever before. Let go of the fear of being alone. Lean into it. Find yourself in it. Because in the end, the person who is most at peace alone is also the one who is most powerful in the world. 8. Find strength in stillness. A calm mind is like an archer pulling back the bow. The power isn't in the frantic movement, but in the stillness before the shot. The archer does not fire in panic. He waits, he focuses, he steadies himself. And when the time is right, he releases with precision. That is what stillness gives you, the ability to act with clarity instead of being ruled by impulse. Most people live in a state of constant movement. They believe that doing more leads to success and that keeping busy means being productive. So they fill every moment with noise, scrolling through social media, checking emails, reacting to every message, worrying about things beyond their control. But activity without direction is like running on a treadmill. It exhausts you, but it doesn't take you anywhere. True strength is not in endless motion, but in stillness. Stillness is not in action. It is mastery. It is the ability to remain centered while everything around you moves. It is what separates those who live intentionally from those who are simply reacting to life. The Stoics knew this well. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The world around you will always be chaotic. People will always have opinions. Situations will always change. But if you let yourself be pulled in every direction, you lose control over the only thing that truly belongs to you, your mind. Imagine a man standing in the middle of a crowded marketplace, voices shouting, people pushing past, distractions everywhere. The more he tries to pay attention to everything, the more overwhelmed he becomes. He starts reacting to every sound, every movement. His energy is scattered, but then he closes his eyes. He takes a deep breath. He focuses on one thing, the steady rhythm of his own breathing. Suddenly, the noise fades. The chaos is still there, but it no longer controls him. That is the power of stillness. It doesn't mean the world stops moving. It means you are no longer tossed around by it. But modern life is designed to pull you away from stillness. Every notification, every demand, and every headline forces your mind into a state of constant reaction. If you never slow down, how can you ever see clearly? If your mind is always busy, when do you think? People assume that inner peace is something you find, but you don't find it. You create it. You create it by removing what does not matter, by filtering out distractions, by letting go of the need to constantly be doing something. Stillness is not just about meditation or silence. It is about focus. It is about knowing what deserves your attention and what does not. It is about mastering the art of letting go. A person who cannot be still will always be controlled by external forces. If your mood is dictated by the news, if your self-worth is dependent on opinions, if your mind is always in motion, then you are not in control. You are being controlled. Epictetus taught, "It is not things that disturb us, but our view of those things." Events are neutral. What makes them good or bad is your reaction. Stillness is what allows you to choose that reaction, rather than be ruled by it. Some people mistake stillness for passivity. They believe that if they slow down, they will fall behind. But the opposite is true. A mind that is constantly racing cannot think clearly. A person who is always reacting can never plan ahead. Think of a chess player. The one who moves too quickly, reacting to every little change, often loses. The one who takes their time, who studies the board, who remains calm under pressure, that is the one who wins. So how do you cultivate stillness? Start small. Spend 10 minutes a day in silence. No phone, no distractions. Just let your mind settle. When you feel overwhelmed, step away. Breathe. Remember that not every thought deserves your attention, and not every problem requires an immediate response. Learn to pause before you react, to observe before you decide. When you master stillness, the world does not control you. Other people's emotions do not control you. Circumstances do not control you. You move through life with purpose, with clarity, with an unshakable sense of inner peace. And in a world full of noise, the one who can master stillness is the one who truly controls their life. Life is not about controlling everything. It is about mastering yourself. You do not need approval from others to be enough. You do not need to know everything to be wise. You do not need to win every argument to be strong. True power comes from letting go of external validation, of unnecessary burdens, of the noise that clouds your mind. The Stoics understood this long ago. Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, they all practiced the art of detachment, not because they did not care, but because they knew that real peace comes from focusing only on what is within your control. And the only thing truly within your control is yourself. When you stop seeking approval, you gain freedom. When you abandon the desire to know everything, you gain clarity. When you take responsibility for your life, you gain power. When you silence your ego, you gain wisdom. When you become your own friend, you gain resilience. When you rewrite your narrative, you gain purpose. When you embrace solitude, you gain self-trust. And when you find strength in stillness, you gain control over your mind. But knowing these lessons is not enough. You must live them. Every day, practice letting go of what does not serve you. Train your mind to be still. Learn to be at peace with yourself, no matter what the world says. Now I ask you, what is one thing you need to let go of today? What is holding you back? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story may inspire someone else to take the first step toward freedom.